All right,
Jonathan?
Christian, are we on here? Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks everybody. So I think I was muted there. Just a quick intro to everyone. Welcome back, Mikkel, Jeffrey, our people in Discord. Hopefully you guys are all staying warm, and we are very fortunate today to have Jonathan back with us, teaching us what today, Jonathan?
We are going to talk about custom portal sorting, and I'm going to show you what exactly I mean by that because I think there might be a little bit of confusion on that. But this is a really neat technique, and we're in for a good little lesson today, and we'll take time for questions and all that sort of thing.
Perfect. Well, I don't want to hold you up, so I'm going to go ahead and put you on full screen. I'm going to monitor
Okay.
the questions, and as they come in, I might interrupt you a little bit to throw some out at your way.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and just let me know, Christian, if that looks okay to you.
That looks great. As long as you can move that little Slack thing out of the way, that'd be
Yeah.
great. As
There we
best you
go.
can. Thank you.
Okay, great, great, great. Okay, so let me show you the use case first, and then we'll dive in. Um, a while ago, I built this tool called Web Portal Wizard. Okay, and you might be familiar with this. And one of the pieces of the interface is over here. This fields to display uh, portal. Okay, so this is a FileMaker portal, and this gives you the ability to um, specify the order in which the columns display on your web portal. And the only way I could figure out how to do that at the time was to put these little arrow buttons. Okay, so if I wanted, let's say, for instance, the modified field to display first, I would have to click up, and then up, and then up, and then up. Okay, it's not altogether helpful for me to be able just to sort by the columns up and down in this case. There are times when that's extremely helpful, where you can just click on the column header and it would display alphabetically or whatever. And Nick Hunter has done a video on that. But what I really want to be able to do, like on most interfaces, be able to drag and drop a line, right? Drag a line, click on a line, hold down, and drag up or down to specify the exact sort order that I want the records to display in, instead of having to fiddle with these up and down arrows all the time. So that's what we're going for. Let me stop right there, Christian, see if there's any clarification on this that needs to be had.
No, I'm glad that you did, Jonathan. I thought you were doing the same thing where you were going to do custom sorting from the top. It looks like we've already kind of got some buzz. This is something people have recently done or wanted to do, so you keep on rolling smoothly.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to shut this down. This just gives you what we're going for, the ability to drag and drop um, portal records and have them stick in the way that you want them to. Okay, so here is the demo file, and that's going to be available, I believe, on Discord and afterwards on the actual video. Is that right, Christian?
You've got that. So we weren't able to get the bit.ly link out before today's stream, so I did share this in Discord. So those of you joining us a little late, if you scroll up, you can find the file. For those of you on YouTube and Twitch, we will get that bit.ly link out later. It just won't be today.
Okay, sounds good. And so if you're wondering where that file is, if you're watching this after the fact, you can look for it in that YouTube description portion. And that's where you can find that bit.ly link to download this file. Okay, so here's the idea. We're going to hit this custom sort button. And yes, you probably guessed it, this is a web viewer. So we're going to have to talk about a little bit of HTML today, but it's not too bad, okay? And here's what we want to be able to do. Say I want to drag this person, Chris, all the way to the top, and I want to drag this person, Ezekiel, all the way to the bottom, and we're making changes, right? You see that we're making changes. We want then this sort order to stick, to keep, to remain that way in FileMaker somehow. So I'm going to hit save and close. And now you'll notice that we have this box that says custom sorting for this person's record. And here's a list of all his coworkers in the exact order that we specified. That's what we're going for, okay? So you notice that we just used a web viewer to do this. And we cannot do it in FileMaker. I can't think of a way that you can drag and drop a line. I've racked my brain about it. And really, there is no reason to have to jerry-rig a way to do that, as long as we have a real simple web viewer demo here. All right. So the web viewer demo that we're giving in this file works on both Mac and Windows. And unlike the demo I did a week or so ago on that Google headless Chrome, where only parts of something work on a Mac, then you switch to a Windows computer and it all breaks, and we had to figure out a workaround using Google Chrome, headless Chrome. We're not talking about anything like that in this. It's simple enough to work on both Mac and PC, and the PC will render and execute everything we need to in the HTML. It works identically. Okay, so that's good. Now we're going to dive into how exactly this works. All right, so I'm going to go to layout mode. We go view layout mode, and you notice this is just a regular FileMaker portal. You'll notice here, though, that if I double click on here, it's not sorting on the portal itself. All right, so I don't have this checked, and we're not saying sort by some specific field. Okay, what I'm doing instead, let's go to browse mode, and file manage database. What I'm doing instead is right here where it says contacts self through ID company, meaning I'm looking at all the contacts within the same company, the coworkers. I'm going to click on this relational criteria here, and you'll see that it's related through ID company. And then this sort records checkbox is checked here. All right, and it's sorting by company sort order, which is a number field. So each when I specify custom sorting, every record that is related through ID company, every single one of these coworkers, all 10 of them, after I hit save and close on that pop-up window, what FileMaker is going to do is execute a script that goes through each of these coworkers and sets a numerical value, all right, in descending order. So Chris here would be number 1, Alicia would be number 2, etc., all the way down to 10. And that is the company sort order. All right. If there is no custom sorting, then the list sorts by its default method, which is the creation order, right? And so it's either custom sorting or no sorting. If custom sorting is unchecked, I'll show you what it does here. Let's go to script debugger. If I say no, I want to revert back to the way it was, and I hit this checkbox, which is a script trigger. Okay, what it does here is it goes to the related records in a hidden window. So now we're viewing in a hidden window all 10 coworkers records, all these contacts. And it says if there was no error in going to that related record, then replace the contents of the custom order with nothing. So erase any custom value that was in that number field. And then that's it. You see it right there, reverted back to its regular order. Okay, and then it closes, and that's it. So to revert back to the default way is very simple. All we're doing is replacing the contents of a field, of the sort field, with nothing. All right, how to actually put the right contents in with the custom sorting is a different matter, and it's a little bit more complicated, but undoing it is very easy. Okay, should we stop right there, Christian, for any questions before continuing on?
You are
we
doing
good so
good at
far?
the moment. There's definitely a lot of buzz about this. Some were hoping you could add this natively into the product, but until we can do that, that's why we have demo files like this.
Right, and maybe this would be a good add-on type of test case, but I'm not really sure. I haven't had a whole lot of people really need this as far as clients go, but there are some use cases for it here and there. So it's not an extremely needed feature, but it does come in handy. All right, so now we're going to jump into this HTML. I'm going to hit new window, and this is the part that I understand really scares people because you haven't done a whole lot of this before, maybe. Okay, but I'm going to try to simplify this and take some of the fear out of this. I want to take my time to explain what's going on here. In many of my test files that I've done on broadcasts in the past, you'll see this type of screen before, and it might look pretty confusing to you. But to explain this, if I go into layout mode, what you're seeing here is a web viewer that is displaying a web page based on what I'm writing over on the left. So if I go into browse mode, this is more or less a sandbox. We're playing with HTML. So let me illustrate this. If I go to new record, this is like a preferences table. It's called record sorting HTML. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to write a very simple web page, okay? Give me 1 second. I'm just going to paste it over here. So if I have HTML and the closing HTML, and I do something like, and see, I'm just freehanding this. Okay, H1, and I say hello world. Okay, that's a very basic HTML page, and that's what it displays here. Okay, if I do something like this, and I add a paragraph, I say something like, happy Tuesday, it's time for coffee, okay? And now we have the HTML that I just typed in. When I commit the record, it displays over on the right. If I put something like, let's just paste in this code. If I put something like a button and it says click me, then here we go, here's our button. It doesn't do anything right now, but it's displaying. All right, so that's the basic HTML format. You have your HTML opening tag, closing tag, and your stuff in between that you want to display. All right, so if you want to stylize what you're looking at, this is real basic. This is your default stuff. If you want to stylize it, you add what's called CSS, or custom style sheets. And one way of doing it, I'm just going to paste this here. I'm going to paste in a style sheet that is called Bootstrap, and it's one of the most popular ones out there. It's what Twitter uses. Okay, and so it's a link to the style sheet. I could enter my own custom style sheets code in this box over here, but I'm just going to paste it in right now. I'm going to commit, and then you see what it did. It is now formatting my text that I typed in with the Bootstrap library. So it knows that if I link to this style sheet to format anything with this tag H1 or header 1 with this certain font and this certain size and so forth, it knows that if I want this style sheet, then I need to format anything with the tag button to look like this. All right, so that's what CSS is. And with this setup, okay, what I've done here is to try to simplify things. Let me cut this. And what I've done is I've put placeholders in there. Okay, so anything in this CSS text box is going to replace this little placeholder. All right. So until I put this in here, it's still going to be my regular format. I'll paste it in, and you see that it replaced it. Right. That's the CSS placeholder thing. There's a couple other placeholders that are in there. So if I go to define database and I go to HTML calc, what it's doing is looking for several different placeholders. One is JS, which stands for JavaScript. So anything that I put in this JavaScript box is going to be replaced here if it finds these 3 stars, JS 3 stars. Same with the CSS that we just saw. The same with file name, and that's important. We'll get into that later on here. The same with data and version. Okay, so let me illustrate the thing with data. If I come over here and hit cancel. Okay, so in record number 1, this is where the data goes. I'm just going to copy that and go to record number 2 and then put something like right here, star, 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 data, star, star, star. And of course, that's not going to display anything until I put the actual data in. This is HTML, and each of these lines is a list, okay? Where you see LI, that stands for a list item, and the closing LI is the closing tag for that list, right? If I commit, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 list items formatted in a specific way, in a way that Bootstrap, this library, knows how to display it. All right, so if I take this CSS out, and if we just wanted to see what these list items look like without the styling, let me cut that, then you have something really basic. Here's the bullet point A, B, C, D, E. But if I add the styling back in, remember, this placeholder is being replaced by this code here, then it formats it in a nice way. All right? You kind of get the idea that this is a playground where we write custom HTML code and it just displays over here for us. It shows us what it will look like in real life. On the first record, it's more beefed out, so to speak, but you get the basic idea still, right? That you have the opening HTML, the closing HTML, you have the CSS, which is exactly like we saw in record number 2. And over here, you do have some more stuff. You have the Bootstrap library, you have a couple other style sheets, and you have 1 or 2 other things that control the padding between the list items and the icons, the sort icons, like the hamburger menu look. And so that's all just styling. If I came here to HTML and removed the styling and cut it, this is what you get. Similar to what we just looked at on record number 2. I'll add that back in, and here comes my styling back. All right. Down here is what's called a div or a divider, okay, and the closing. And so you have everything in here is the actual contents. This thing up here says drag and sort. That's the title here. So if I'd said something like custom sorting, it's going to change there. And it's also going to change in the background here too. You see, whatever I change in the preference in this record is going to reflect in that card style window. So let me add this back in, drag and drop, okay? And then over here, we're saying we want a list, okay, with the data that we're displaying over here. In the contacts, we're going to display a different set of data. It's not going to be static like this, A, B, C, D, E. We're going to be displaying a list of contacts. And here's how that works. If I go to define database, where is it? Right here, every single contact record has this calculation that's going to calculate on it. And it's this right here. It's this weird looking string of text that it's calculating. And it's basically an HTML list item for every single contact record. So if I come over here and go to data viewer and see what that looks like for this person's record, I go HTML list item, here it is. Okay. And if where is this? I'm going to just omit several records. So we have 8 in our found set. The other field that plays into this is not just the list item, but where is it? I'm trying to find it.
Which one are you looking for, Jonathan? I turned my head for a moment.
Yeah, it might be that it's doing it in a script. I don't know, but I'll come back to that in a second. Anyways, so let's come back here. Okay, so you get the idea that this is my sandbox. It's displaying whatever I write over here. And then the difficult part is this JavaScript. I know this is really scary looking. All right, so it starts with script. It ends with script and everything in between. This controls what happens when you drag and drop stuff. Okay, so if I move D to spot A and so forth, this JavaScript is allowing the web viewer to do that. If I come to my HTML and I remove this JavaScript, okay, now watch what it does. It won't do anything because this web viewer doesn't know what to do when you try to drag and drop stuff. This JavaScript here is telling it exactly what to do when you drag and drop. It's saying that if I move D to spot A, then keep it there. That's how I can explain it in the simplest terms. Okay. Now, did I write this from scratch? No, definitely not. I took it from online, a Stack Exchange type of environment where people ask the question, how do I drag and drop list items in HTML? And I more or less pasted verbatim this entire block of text. And the only thing I added was this right here. This is the part that calls back to FileMaker and tells FileMaker to do something with this list. Right? Here's what it does. I'm going to open up Script Debugger. Let's say I move list item D to A. You see it just called a FileMaker script called test script. And what it did is, let's open up the data viewer. What it did is send back as a script parameter the current list, D, A, B, C, E. You see what the current list is, doesn't match this one. But when I run the script, it sets that global variable to match D, A, B, C, E. So we need to tell FileMaker what the custom sort order is that we specified. And the way to do that is to run a script right here with the list of items that are currently being displayed in the way that they're being displayed. That's how that works. You'll notice here that this is using the FMP URL protocol instead of the FileMaker 19 newer way of doing things. But whether you run this on 18 or 19, it's set up in a way where it finds the version that you're using and the file name and executes it properly. Okay, so we didn't want to limit it to people that are not using 19 yet. if it was really easy to do this, right? Okay, so to bug test some of this, if I come here to Tools, Data Viewer, okay, this is the HTML calc. That is what the web viewer is referencing, okay? And this is the entire compiled web page here. So if I copy and paste this into a web editing page, let me bring one over here. This is W3 Schools. This is a really nice online web editing tool.
It's
if
funny
I just
when
come
you
over here,
when you showed your sandbox, this is exactly what it reminded me of, because this is where I learned to do basic HTML.
right, yeah, there you go. So if I paste this in, remember, this is everything that I'm displaying right here in this web viewer, all right? And I'm just going to remove right now the part that talks back to FileMaker, because we don't need that for our test purposes. And I hit run. We're reproducing the exact thing we're seeing in FileMaker. At the end of the day, all it is an HTML page that we are compiling, all right? And an HTML page that talks back to FileMaker. It sends FileMaker the list that we customized for ourselves, our custom list. And then FileMaker takes that list and applies a number to each actual FileMaker record to make that list stick, right? So when you're debugging things and you want to see how things look in a web page, it's easier to do this with a fully compiled with the fully compiled HTML code in something like W3 Schools. And that's what I would recommend if you're first starting out there, right?
Hey, Jonathan, I got a couple basic questions for you. One of them is from one of our regulars, Kyle Williams, and he wanted to know if there's any specific reason you use 3 asterisks for your targeted values versus like 2 on the CSS. Okay, that's...
No, you want to, if you're doing these placeholder things, you want to use something that isn't going to appear naturally. And what I mean by that is, say you had a list item, okay, that was called CSS. Like there's a contact record in your file named 3 stars CSS 3 stars. Then you're kind of, it's not going to turn out too well. Okay, it's going to try to replace this placeholder. I guess it didn't in this case, for whatever reason. But you want something that is not going to be. There's not going to be a contact name named this. You're never going to see this string, hopefully. But if I named it something like CSS with no stars, maybe there would be a value in there with that string. Maybe I can see that. And then you have all sorts of weird HTML formatting here, because FileMaker is looking through this whole HTML code, looking for instances of this exact string, and it's going to replace every single one of them with this CSS. So that's just my way of doing it, and you could do it however you'd like. Some people use tildes or ampersand signs, and this is just fairly easy for me.
And there's another topic that's being chatted a lot here in Discord that's not necessarily a question, but I'm curious to get your input on if you think that there would be an issue with this method if you had to sort a very large number of records.
Sure. I think that if you're scrolling through, say, more than a couple dozen records, and you have to drag and drop and rearrange things, I'm wondering what that use case would be that you would have to do that. The only scenarios that I can think of are things that I've had to build, and they aren't dozens and dozens of list items. If you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of records, and you have to individually sort each column particularly, that's going to be a little rough. But if you have to do it, I can't think of a different way of doing it than this.
Yeah, it seems like in most of the threads, people are saying this would be really great for kind of a limited set of data. In Twitch, one user said this would be great for a student's like schedule.
Yeah.
And Scott Kane in Discord, can you go back to your JS tab real quick?
Yeah.
He noticed that you had some blue text in here, and it was referencing some JQuery, and he was wondering if you could explain what that is.
Okay, so JQuery is another JavaScript library that is one of the most popular libraries out there. Okay, and where am I referencing that at? I'm looking for it. Let's see here.
And he did say he thought that you did. I thought I saw it in the JS section.
Oh, okay. Yep, I thought I was in there. Okay.
There it is.
It's
in the blue.
It's here. It's right here. So before my JS, the actual JavaScript code, I am referencing a JavaScript library. It's not a link like in the CSS, but you have to specify it as a script tag. And this is referencing the jQuery library with a particular version number, okay, which allows this JS to work. So let's say I remove this. Watch this. Okay. It will sort, but it's not going to trigger the FileMaker script properly. Okay. So you have to have that, and jQuery allows you to do special things with records that you can't do natively in HTML. That's the best way I can explain it. It just comes in handy. And again, I couldn't walk you through line by line and show you exactly what this JavaScript code does. I copy pasted this and I reworked it to my needs. I don't think I could have written this from scratch, but I knew where I needed to insert the callback into FileMaker. And then I put this in blue. It doesn't have to be in blue. It's just, it sticks out to me if it's in blue. And I put this FileMaker code in one place, and that's the only thing I had to change. So in this function, when the drag and drop is actually done, when I move, say, D to spot A, and I lift my finger off of the mouse, right, the drag and drop is done, this function triggers. It says, what happens when I finish the drag and drop? Okay, it does this little part here, basically saying, leave D in spot A. But also, I want to tell FileMaker what the new custom sort order is. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm saying I want to get a list of the items, right, which is all of these items here. And then I want to do this thing with jQuery that allows me to organize them in a way that I can send in a script parameter in FileMaker. And then once I do that, this variable called ARR for array, I'm sending this array back to a FileMaker script in a script parameter. The array, which is a stacked list of items, comes back to FileMaker. And then in my contacts records, I then loop through that array and add a numerical value to each of them, right? So that's the only part that we haven't gone through yet. I'll do that right now. Let me delete this little test record. So if I come here to custom sorting, and let me just move a couple people around. So this is now out of order. Let's say this is the order I wanted in. And I come to script debugger, and I hit save and close. This is how it actually applies that custom sorting. All right, so I didn't hit cancel. So if I hit save, then it commits. It makes sure that there is something in my global variable called my list. and there definitely is. So this is what it looks like. It's a stacked list of variables, right? And then I'm going to loop through. All right, so I'm going to set the company's flag custom sort to 1, which will flag all of these contacts with that company as having a custom sort order. That's the little checkbox that you saw. Okay, I commit that, and then I'm looping through. This whole loop goes through every single one of these records and sets the sort order that I want for them. And it's real easy because, well, I'll just show you. So I know what my count is over here. The count is 10, so I'm looping through 10 records. And then the iteration that I'm on, the first loop, is set to 1. So the first record that I'm on is also the first record that I want to appear in the list. All right, this match value, I'm setting a global field on one end with the first value of my list. And that's this right here, Josephine. So my global match value field has Josephine. And then there's a relationship on the right side, right here, okay, that if there's a person with that name and this number that matches, then set that record to whatever iteration I'm on, in this case, 1. We're setting this person's custom sort order field to 1. And then it goes to the next one. Now we're on iteration 2. It sets the match value to the second value in my iteration, which is Alicia. And then if there's a match, which there is on the other side, then we're going to set Alicia's custom sort order number to whatever iteration I'm on, which is 2. And so it just sets the person's number to the iteration you're on in the loop all the way to 10. And that's fairly simple. Okay, so I go through all the way, it'll go through 10, then it'll commit the records and close this card window. So I'll go to the end there, and now you have Josephine, her custom sort order number for her record is 1, Alicia's is 2, and all the way to 10. And that's why this portal is sorting in the way that it is, because in the relationships, I can come here. This is that portal, by the way. The portal that you're seeing on the in the background is this one, and we're telling it to sort by this field, right? So that's how that works. I think I've gone through pretty much all the demo here. So let me hit the pause button, see if there's any follow-up questions.
Let me double check. At the moment, I don't think I see any. People say they're following you pretty good, and liking that section of loose rising similar to what you did in JS. No, I don't see too many questions at the moment.
Okay, well that's fine then.
What I'm hearing is that you're a very good teacher, and people who thought they might not necessarily be able to follow are following you pretty well.
Yeah, so some of this stuff really is scary at first until you break it down. It's like, I can do that. It's not a problem. The scariest part is finding the JavaScript that is going to work for you, right? And it's easy to make a button display. It's hard to make a button work, and so that's always the difficult part.
I do have 2 other questions. I actually had one I meant to ask earlier and forgot. But David Angel is wanting to know how you find CSS styles.
Okay. Well, there are a couple of main libraries that you can look at. And let's just pull one up here, CSS libraries. And here it is, the best CSS frameworks, right? And you look at the ones that look best to you. And I think, again, number 1 is Bootstrap. And so you can do a bunch with it. And that's how I got started. I literally Google searched best CSS libraries. it's easier to use an existing, commonly used CSS library than trying to create your own. All right, and that's what I've done. In my, where is it? I closed it down. My web portal wizard, I had several different ones that that I could use. Let me just pull that up real quick. One sec. Let's see here. Well, that's not it. Where is it? I think this is it. Okay, let's see. So if I go to templates, yeah, so here's Bootstrap 4. That's kind of how the buttons could look. Bootstrap 3 is another CSS library. This is a specific library to data tables, and I don't really like how that looks. Foundation is another one. JQuery has its own CSS library, and Semantic does as well. So anyways, there's a bunch of different options. When you need something to do, when you need something to be custom and not just out of the box, for instance here, if I go to CSS, this stuff here is custom, right? I'm saying that anything that is a container, I want the margin to be 20 pixels. I want the max width to be 500 pixels. For anything that has this tag, I don't want a margin, I don't want padding, etc. So if I removed this and I just cut it, you see what it did. Some of the margins are off. This this icon is now like butted up against the text, and it looks really weird, right? So I had to tweak it a bit to make anything with an icon tag, or this I think that stands for icon, to have a margin of 10 pixels. And you see what happens when I commit the record. I get a margin of 10 pixels now. So it's stuff like that that you'll have to tweak a little bit, but there's such good communities of HTML developers and JavaScript developers that most of this stuff is readily available to you without having to reinvent the wheel and start carving your web page from a rock.
You know, and I still have a question for you, but David had a follow-up question, and I think it's a good one for others to hear, especially on all of our different channels. And he said, could you just copy and paste the whole library rather than referencing it? And if you could, why do you choose maybe to reference it?
Right. For me, it's a matter of less code. Okay. You could take the entire library and paste it into CSS. So for instance, let's just show you what I'm talking about so that others can track it here. If I come here and I just paste in, oh, it didn't like that at all, did it? Oh, wait, here we go. Okay, this is the Bootstrap CSS library. Okay, I could take this entire thing and copy paste it into this box, and it would work just fine. All right. The reason I don't do that is it's just confusing to me when I look at it. But the advantage of doing it, I think that's what this person is getting at, is that if you copy paste it in, it'll work offline.
That's what someone else was just asked, okay. Actually.
Yeah. So if you put a link in here, you're assuming that this FileMaker file has internet access and is, on a server somewhere or something, but is pinging this particular page to get the CSS. Now it takes milliseconds to retrieve that text, and you're just not going to even see it. It's not a speed issue. It's just a readability issue for me. It's easier for me to see this link and know what this is than
30,000
to look at the CSS
code.
and see this. I'm like, what in the world? What is all this stuff? So it's just a readability thing for me. But you're right, you could do that if you need an offline functioning file. You would have to do that then.
And then, Jonathan, I'm curious if you know the answer on this then, too. As JavaScript is becoming more prevalent or available to FileMaker, some of the things I've heard people ask, and I'm seeing it in Discord today, is could you have local files on your computer if you were worried about not having internet, so that you didn't necessarily have to have the internet, but didn't necessarily have to have a ton of text in a field? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, to be clear, you could have this entire thing be offline. JavaScript itself does not depend on the internet, an active internet connection. Rendering HTML pages does not depend on having an internet connection. Neither does CSS. The rendering engine is local. All right, so you could paste in the raw CSS, the raw JavaScript libraries like JQuery, and put it all here and have it work just fine. It'd just be very difficult to reverse engineer to see what is going on. That's my only thing. So people could make fully offline versions of this and still have the drag and drop capability, no problem.
Hey, and I'm gonna have to head out here in a moment. So before I turn you over to our second host, I have actually a personal question. I could see adding this for a client. And can you go to the actual card that comes up where you do the sorting?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a more open-ended question. So if you added that card and someone said, I love this, but how hard would it be to add the feature to edit one of those records from this window? I'm curious how difficult you think that might be.
Well, it would be something like, let me just do this on the fly, right? So in this list item, and this is static text, so I can monkey with this a little bit. I could do something like, okay, I mean, that looks terrible, right? You'd have to format that better.
But
you
on
can
the spot,
put a button. Yeah, you can put a button on that line, and then in the JavaScript, it would there would be a function down here. You would write a function that would call a FileMaker script, and then that would probably close the card style window and open the record, an edit card window for that record. Now, of course, I mean, you'd need more formatting than this. That looks terrible, but you can see you can add a button very easily. You just need to format it properly.
That's really cool. Like I said, that was actually my own personal question. We've got a couple more questions, Jonathan, so I want to keep you rolling on this, but I'm going to hand you over to Zane the Stash, who's gonna finish up the stream for us so I can run to a meeting.
Sounds good. All right, take care. Thanks.
Hello, how's it going, everybody?
Zane, how's it going, man?
Oh, not too bad. We got a question from Scott. He's asking, how are you determining and formatting the script parameter when you change the order?
Okay, so if I come down here to JavaScript, this blue text, I tried to highlight in blue to show you the part that you're interested in, more or less. All this other stuff, I didn't have to change a thing. I had to add this bit of code to this one function, and this one function triggers whenever you finish the drag and drop. All of these other functions, okay, there's a function for the drag start, the drag enter, the drag over. So drag over, let me show you. If I click and start dragging, there's you see that floating box there? There's a function called drag over that is allowing me to see that floating box in the middle of dragging and dropping it. So that's a nice effect, and that's, it's a nice to have thing. It helps visually. And then there's another function when I finish the drag and drop. And all of these are right here. Drag end, drop, drag leave, etc. The only one I had to edit was the drag end. At the end of the entire process, I want to gather a list, the list that is being displayed currently. So if I drag C to A, I want a list, a return delimited list. So C, paragraph return A, paragraph return D, etc. to E. And that's what I have here in a global variable called myList, CADBE, and they're all stacked on top of each other. The way you do that down here in the blue, first, you get a variable in JavaScript. The way to set a variable, similar to like a single $sign in FileMaker in a script, var items. So here's a variable named items. And then I'm getting a list of every item with this class name, list group item. And you see up here that every single item in the list is going to have this class name, list group item. In other words, I'm getting a list of everything on the list. All right. I don't want to include like the top header stuff, like the words drag and drop. I'm only interested in the list items. Okay, that's this. But I cannot send this variable to FileMaker in a parameter. It won't accept it. It has to be formatted a little bit differently. So that's where the JQuery comes in. And the JQuery, this thing here, ARR, is another variable I'm setting. And I'm grabbing all of the list items, and for each one, it's compiling a stacked list for me. That's what I need. And I'm not even sure if I'm using this variable anymore. This might be a leftover. This is the part that I'm really needing. It's formatted in such a way that FileMaker can take it and accept it. It's a string, okay? If I try to format this if I try to send it HTML code or something, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. It has to be something FileMaker can interpret as a string. So once I have this string, this array, then I execute this FileMaker script, this var called do this, and this is the FileMaker script. This is the format it needs to be in. So it will be FMP, in this case, 18. The file name will be filled in with this here. The script is test script, and then the parameter is this array, okay? And then this is a JavaScript way of saying execute this script called window.location, and then I'm saying do this, which is this script here. And that might be very confusing, but really copy pasting this code and just playing with it will get you where you need to go. Reverse engineering this and not trying to write it from scratch. And I think that that'll get you farther.
Perfect. No more questions I'm seeing, but people are kind of talking about the HTML versus CSS for JavaScript and like what they do and how they interact together as opposed to just being all one thing.
Right. Well, I mean, that's it. I think that people can get this file, play with it, and hopefully this comes in handy. We might be able to leave a couple minutes early here if folks don't have any more questions. And Zane, have you played with web viewers already, and have you played around with some of this?
I've played around with web viewers. Andy has the chart thing he's going to present pretty soon. He's using AnyCharts API, so lots of cool charts we're doing. And then, yeah, just web viewer, I feel a little bit more at home just because I got the web dev background. So,
Gotcha. So some of these terms are making a lot more sense than some FileMaker terms, probably.
Oh, absolutely. I'm still, whenever I want to concatenate two things, I'm still using plus instead of and. So I gotta.
Yeah, there you go.
Gotta just it's just syntax things, but it happens.
Yep.
All right, so I think people would like to see J-Ray and Zane's faces before we land again. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this. Oh,
Oh,
Boom,
here I
there you
am.
go.
Okay.
And I don't know if we could get mine, but I will play the closing video, and I think we're good to go. Thank you so much,
All right.
Ray. We
Yep,
really
sure thing.
appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one.
You as well. All right, and let's see if I can do this.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.